The Empire's Invitation. The Xelari Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds and broken 100 species beneath its heel. War was their lifeblood, and they prided themselves on their warrior caste, the elite Crimson Legion, made up of the deadliest fighters from across the stars. When Captain Daniel Carter, a human soldier from a backwater planet called Earth, was invited to join their ranks, it was little more than a formality. The Xelari had recently annexed several human colonies, and to avoid rebellion, they extended the honor of recruitment to a handful of humans. None had made it past basic trials. The Xelari believed humans were weak, biologically inferior to true warriors. Daniel Carter would be no different. At least, that's what they thought. The trials. Carter stood in the center of the Xelari combat pit, surrounded by towering alien warriors. The arena's blood-stained floors told a long history of violence. A crowd of officers and recruits watched from above, murmuring in their guttural language. He caught some of it, words like soft, frail, and not built for war. He ignored them. Across from him, his opponent stepped forward. Kroltan, a 7-foot reptilian behemoth with clawed hands and thick, armored scales. A veteran of 100 campaigns. Kroltan sneered, baring his fangs. A human? This is an insult. He cracked his knuckles. I will break you quickly. Carter rolled his shoulders. Go ahead and try. The signal sounded. Kroltan lunged, swinging a massive fist meant to crush bone. Carter didn't hesitate. He sidestepped, driving an elbow into the alien's ribs, right where the scales were thinner. Kroltan grunted, more annoyed than hurt, and whirled to grab him. Carter ducked, slid between his legs, and kicked the back of his knee. The giant stumbled. The crowd jeered. Kroltan roared and charged again. This time, Carter let him get close, then twisted at the last second, catching the alien's momentum and using it against him. He hooked an arm around Kroltan's massive neck and drove his combat knife into the soft spot between his shoulder plates. Kroltan collapsed. He wasn't dead, but he wasn't getting up either. Silence fell over the arena. Carter stepped back, flicked the blood off his knife, and met the eyes of Commander Varkle, the Xelari officer overseeing the trials. Varkle's golden exoskeletal armor gleamed under the arena lights. His 4 crimson eyes narrowed in displeasure. Beginner's luck, someone muttered. Carter knew better. The squad. Later, Carter stood in the barracks, meeting the warriors he would be assigned to. Commander Varkle addressed them first. This is Captain Carter, a human. He will serve in your unit. Do not expect much. Carter gave a lazy salute. Good to be here. The squad members reacted as expected. Kroltan, still nursing his wounds, glared but said nothing. Lieutenant Regia, an insectoid with razor-sharp mandibles, studied him silently. Zen, a younger, eager recruit, looked at him with open curiosity. I didn't think humans were this fast, Zen admitted. Carter shrugged. We manage. Commander Varkle's mandibles clicked in irritation. We shall see. Tomorrow, you deploy with us to Arach-Tor. A rebellion must be crushed. You will follow orders, human. Carter just smiled. I always follow orders. For now, the mission. Arach-Tor was a barren, mountainous world. Rebel forces had taken control of an abandoned fortress, using its natural defenses to resist the Xelari assault. It should have been an easy victory, but the Empire had underestimated their enemy. The dropship rumbled as Carter and his squad descended onto the war-torn battlefield. Explosions lit up the night. Xelari forces were pinned down, their front line in disarray. The rebels were using hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and fading into the terrain. The Xelari, accustomed to direct assaults, were struggling. Carter assessed the battlefield and saw the problem instantly. The Xelari were too rigid in their strategy. They weren't adapting. Varkle barked orders, sending warriors forward in predictable patterns. They were cut down by sniper fire and well-placed explosives. Carter clenched his jaw. Commander, he said, your approach is too obvious. We need to flank, hit their weak points, not march straight into their kill zone. Varkle sneered. You presume to correct me, human? Yes. Carter stepped forward. Let me handle this. Varkle hesitated. He hated the idea of letting a human take charge, but he hated losing more. Fine, prove your worth. Carter turned to the squad. Zen, take the high ground and spot targets. Regia, stick to the shadows. Take out sentries quietly. Kroltan with me. We'll hit their ammo depot first. Kroltan grunted but followed. The others obeyed. Minutes later, Carter was exactly where he thrived, in the chaos of war. He moved fast, using cover, flanking the enemy while the Xelari kept them distracted. A knife to the throat here, a precise headshot there. He set explosive charges at key points, waiting until the rebels were clustered together, then detonated them all at once. The battlefield erupted in flames. By the time the Xelari front line advanced, the rebels were already in full retreat. Carter stood among the wreckage, bloodied but calm. His squad caught up, staring at the devastation. Zen exhaled in awe. How many did you kill? Carter checked his ammo. Enough. Commander Varkle approached, his expression unreadable. We expected you to be competent, human. But this... He gestured to the bodies. This is something else. Carter sheathed his knife. You wanted a warrior. You got one. Above them, the Xelari officers recorded the battle data. Carter's kill count flashed across their screens. It was a number no single soldier should ever have achieved. And for the first time in their empire's long history, the Xelari felt something they had never felt before. Fear. The Xelari Empire prided itself on its warriors. For generations, they had conquered worlds through sheer force, overwhelming their enemies with numbers and firepower. To them, strategy was simple: crush the weak, dominate the battlefield, and enforce submission. But Captain Daniel Carter fought differently, and the Xelari were starting to realize their mistake. The aftermath of Arach-Tor. Carter sat on the edge of a supply crate, cleaning his rifle. The battle was over. The rebel stronghold had been reduced to smoldering ruins, its defenders scattered or dead. Xelari forces had taken full credit for the victory, but the truth was known among the warriors who had been there. The human had won this battle. Across the war camp, soldiers whispered about what they had seen. One man, moving with precision and ruthlessness, eliminating enemies before they even knew he was there. His kill count had been recorded. It was too high, impossibly high for a single soldier. Commander Varkle stood at the center of the camp, giving orders for the cleanup operation. He had been cold toward Carter since the battle, but his body language betrayed unease. The human had forced him to listen, forced him to acknowledge his superiority in combat. And that did not sit well with the Xelari officer. Kroltan approached, arms crossed. His wounds from their first fight had healed, but something in his eyes had changed. The arrogance was gone. You fight like a predator, Kroltan admitted, not like a soldier. Carter continued, cleaning his rifle. Soldiers die following orders. Predators survive by being smarter than their prey. Kroltan grunted. It is unnatural. Carter glanced at him. Unnatural? Or just better? Kroltan had no answer. The next mission. 2 days later, Carter and his squad were deployed again, this time to the city moon of Velar 9. A key industrial hub, Velar 9 had fallen under siege by rebel insurgents who had seized control of key supply routes. The Xelari planned to crush them with a direct assault. As a transport ship descended through the planet's smog-choked atmosphere, Carter reviewed the mission plan. It was a disaster waiting to happen. The rebels have anti-air batteries, he pointed out. You land a full assault force. You're walking into a death trap. Varkle scowled. The Xelari do not skulk in shadows. We dominate the battlefield. Carter sighed. Yeah? And how well did that work on Arach-Tor? Varkle's mandibles clicked in frustration, but before he could respond, the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Explosions erupted across the cityscape below. The rebels were dug in deep. The Xelari deployment began as expected, warriors dropping into the streets in tight formations, advancing in overwhelming numbers. And just as Carter had predicted, they were slaughtered. From hidden vantage points, rebel snipers picked them off. From alleyways, ambush teams struck with explosives and hit-and-run attacks. The Xelari warriors, trained for direct combat, faltered. Their strength meant nothing when they didn't even know where the enemy was. Carter didn't hesitate. He pulled his squad into cover, scanning the battlefield. He saw weaknesses, open flanks, exploitable blind spots, predictable enemy movement patterns. He took charge. Zen, give me a layout of the streets. Rija, find their snipers and take them out quietly. Kroltan, with me, we're hitting their command post first. Varkle started to object, but Carter ignored him. Time for arguing was over. The human moved fast. Where the Xelari fought like sledgehammers, Carter was a scalpel. He used the environment, slipping through side streets, flanking enemy positions, eliminating key targets before they could react. One by one, rebel strongholds collapsed. Carter didn't fight like the Xelari. He fought like a ghost, appearing where the enemy least expected, striking without mercy. Within hours, the tide of battle had shifted. Xelari forces, seeing the enemy in disarray, surged forward. By nightfall, Velar, 9 was theirs. The fear sets in. Back at base, Carter leaned against a railing, watching the distant fires of the ruined city. His squad stood nearby, silent. Kroltan finally spoke. That was efficient. Zen, wide-eyed, nodded. I've never seen someone fight like that. It's like he knew what they were going to do before they did. Carter shrugged. War isn't about strength. It's about understanding your enemy. Varkle approached, his expression unreadable. He stared at Carter for a long moment before speaking. Your tactics are unconventional, Varkle admitted. But they work. Carter smirked. That's the closest thing to a compliment I'm going to get, isn't it? Varkle didn't answer. Instead, he handed Carter a datapad. Your battle record has been reviewed. The Empire has taken notice. Carter glanced at the screen. His confirmed kill count flashed in bold red numbers. The number was staggering, far beyond what any Xelari soldier had ever achieved. He looked back up. Something wrong, Commander? Varkle's mandibles twitched. The Empire values strength, but strength unchecked is dangerous. Carter locked eyes with him. Are you afraid of me, Commander? A long pause. Then, in a rare moment of honesty, Varkle answered, yes. For the first time in its long, war-filled history, the Xelari Empire had found something it could not control, and it terrified them. The Butcher of Arach-Tor. The Xelari Empire had made a mistake. At first, they had thought Captain Daniel Carter was just another soldier, perhaps skilled, perhaps lucky, but nothing beyond the norm. Then the numbers started coming in. His confirmed kill count was climbing at an unnatural rate. It wasn't just high, it was impossible. The whispers had started after Arach-Tor. By the time Velar, 9 fell, those whispers had turned into fear. Carter didn't fight like an ordinary warrior. He wasn't just an efficient soldier. He was something else entirely. Something the Empire had never seen before. A reputation begins. Carter sat alone in the barracks, sharpening his combat knife. The room was quiet, but he could feel the eyes on him. His squad, Kroltan, Rija, Zen, kept their distance. Even Zen, the most curious of the group, was unusually quiet. It wasn't the silence that bothered Carter. It was why they were silent. They had seen him in battle. They had seen what he was capable of. And now, they didn't know what to make of him. The door hissed open. Commander Varkle entered, his expression carefully neutral. You have been summoned, he said. Carter didn't look up. By who? Varkle's mandibles clicked. High Command. That got Carter's attention. He set his knife down and met Varkle's gaze. The commander had always held contempt for him. But now there's something else behind those 4 crimson eyes. Unease. Let me guess, Carter said, standing. They want to know how a frail human is outperforming their best warriors. Varkle didn't answer. He didn't have to. The meeting with High Command. Carter stood in a dimly lit chamber deep within the Xelari flagship. Across from him sat 3 high-ranking Xelari officials, their insectoid features impassive. Behind them, massive screens displayed combat data, kill counts, mission reports, battlefield footage. Carter saw his own face flashing on one of the displays, surrounded by numbers that no single soldier should have been able to achieve. The one in the center, a high-ranking strategist named Overlord Zathis, leaned forward. Captain Carter, Zathis began, his voice slow and measured. Your performance in battle is extraordinary. Carter crossed his arms. Thanks. Zathis ignored the remark. We have reviewed your record. Your methods are unlike anything we have encountered. You do not fight like a warrior. You fight like a predator. Carter smirked. I've heard that before. Zathis studied him for a moment. Your kill count exceeds that of entire platoons. Even our most elite units do not match your efficiency. Carter remained silent. He knew where this was going. Zathis' mandibles twitched. Tell me, Captain, are you using unauthorized enhancements? Cybernetic implants? Some hidden human technology? Carter chuckled. You think I'm cheating? The Xelari officer did not laugh. No single human should be capable of this level of destruction. Carter stepped forward, placing his hands on the table. That's your problem right there. You think I'm just human. You don't understand what that means. Zathis narrowed his eyes. Enlighten us. Carter straightened. You Xelari have spent centuries relying on your strength, your numbers. You expect enemies to fight the way you do. Direct, predictable. But humans? We don't play by your rules. We adapt. We outthink. We win. Silence filled the chamber. Finally, Zathis leaned back. That is what concerns us. Carter frowned. Concern? Zathis pressed a button on the table. The screens shifted, displaying a different set of data. Projections. Probability models. Every scenario played out with one common theme. If Carter ever turned against the Empire, the damage he could inflict would be catastrophic. You are dangerous, Captain, Zathis said. Too dangerous. Carter exhaled slowly. So that's what this is. Zathis stood. You have served the Empire well, but your continued existence presents a risk we cannot ignore. Carter shook his head. Let me guess. You're not just going to fire me. Zathis' mandibles clicked. No. The assassination attempt. Carter knew it was coming before they even made a move. The moment he left the chamber, he noticed the small changes. The sudden silence in the corridors. The way the guards subtly shifted their positions. The way Varkle, who had accompanied him, kept glancing at his sidearm. Carter sighed. You really think this is going to work? Varkle stiffened. You are a threat to the Empire, Carter. This is the only logical course of action. Carter stopped walking. The corridor was empty now. So, he said, rolling his shoulders. How's this supposed to go? I turn a corner, and you guys jump me? Maybe a tragic accident in the airlock. Varkle didn't answer. Carter sighed again. I really like this job. Then he moved. Before Varkle could react, Carter had his sidearm. One fluid motion, a shot to the left, dropping a hidden sniper before he could fire. A duck, a roll, another shot. 2 more guards down before they could draw. Varkle tried to go for his own weapon. Carter was faster. He had the barrel pressed against the commander's throat before he could blink. For the first time, true fear entered Varkle's eyes. You should have let me fight for you, Carter said, voice low and dangerous. Then he smashed Varkle's head against the wall, knocking him out cold. The Butcher walks free. Alarms blared. Carter moved quickly, slipping through the ship's halls, disabling security systems, stealing a small transport vessel. By the time Xelari realized what had happened, he was already gone. High Command watched in stunned silence as the footage played out. One man, alone, escaping from an empire that had conquered entire civilizations. Zathis exhaled slowly. We have made a grave error. The name spread quickly among the ranks. The stories grew, exaggerated with each retelling. The human death machine, the Butcher of Arach-Tor. And now he was out there free. A man who had no equal on the battlefield. A man who knew how they fought, how they thought. A man who was now their enemy. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Xelari Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. They had enslaved species, wiped out civilizations, and crushed rebellions before they could begin. But they had never faced anything like Captain Daniel Carter. And now, he was loose in the galaxy. On the run, Carter sat in the cockpit of the stolen Xelari fighter, watching the swirling void of hyperspace. His heart was steady, his breathing controlled. He had planned his escape well. By the time the Empire had locked down the sector, he was already gone. He had killed a dozen Xelari warriors on his way out. Not because he wanted to, because they hadn't given him a choice. He had given them a chance. They had chosen wrong. Now, the entire Xelari war machine would be hunting him. He smirked. Good. Let them come. The Empire's response. On the Xelari warship Cravash, High Overlord Zathis stood before a gathering of military leaders. A holographic image of Carter hovered in the center of the room. Beneath it, his recorded kill count flashed in crimson digits. The numbers had become something of a legend, whispered in dark corridors. He is one man, the general scoffed. A single human. Surely he cannot be a threat to the might of the Empire. Zathis didn't speak. Instead, he played a series of security recordings, footage of Carter in battle. Carter moving through the ruins of Arach-Tor like a ghost, eliminating enemies before they even saw him. Carter leading the assault on Velar 9, predicting enemy movements with terrifying accuracy. Carter escaping the Cravash, taking down an entire squad of elite warriors in less than 30 seconds. The room fell silent. Then Zathis spoke. He is not just a man, the Overlord said. He is a force of nature, a predator unlike any we have encountered. The generals shifted uneasily. So what do we do? One asked. Zathis turned to Varkal, who now bore a scar across his mandibles, a reminder of his last encounter with Carter. Varkal's voice was cold. We hunt him down. Zathis nodded. And we do not underestimate him again. The first ambush. Carter's stolen fighter dropped out of hyperspace near an abandoned mining colony on the edge of Xelari space. He needed supplies, a new ship, somewhere to disappear. But the moment he entered orbit, alarms flared. They were waiting for him. A fleet of Xelari warships emerged from the planet's shadow, weapons locking onto his fighter. The comms crackled to life. You cannot escape, human, came Varkal's voice. You will not survive this time. Carter assessed the situation. He was outnumbered, outgunned. A direct fight would be suicide. But Carter didn't fight fair. He yanked the controls, sending the fighter into a spiraling dive toward the planet's surface. The Xelari ships pursued, but Carter knew these ships inside and out. He had studied their weaknesses. He twisted through the planet's rocky canyons, weaving between jagged cliffs. The Xelari pilots followed, until Carter abruptly pulled up, cutting his engines for a fraction of a second. The lead pursuer wasn't fast enough. The ship slammed into a rock face, exploding in a fiery blast. The others hesitated, adjusting their pursuit pattern. That was all Carter needed. He dove again, heading for the abandoned mining complex. He brought the fighter in low, ejecting at the last moment. The ship crashed into the surface, sending up a cloud of debris. By the time the Xelari landed, Carter was already gone. The Shadow War begins. Varkal stood at the crash site, scanning the wreckage. No body, no sign of Carter. He clenched his fists. He's alive, he growled. Zathis' voice came over the comms. Pull back. We will track him. He cannot hide forever. Varkal wanted to argue, to tear the ruins apart until he found Carter's corpse. But he knew better. Carter wasn't just running. He was planning. This wasn't over. Carter's next move. Deep in the underground tunnels of the mining colony, Carter moved with quiet precision. He had already found weapons, supplies, and a new escape route. The Xelari thought they were the hunters. They were wrong. He activated a stolen Xelari communicator and transmitted a message across the sector. To anyone who wants to fight the Empire, he said, you're not alone. Then he vanished into the shadows, ready for the war to come.